for those of you who are totally confused, I am Pam Coronado. I'm not Beverly. She's over there, though I do a lot of work with Beverly, so I'm kind of disappointed I'm missing her thing right now. I'm here today to pay tribute to Alan Vaughn. He was an amazing man and a dear friend, and I'll tell you a little bit about him in a minute. We have a very short little tape I'm going to show, just kind of a little tribute memorial to Alan Vaughn. Is that the end? Okay, that's the end of my technology there. Keep it simple. For those of you who knew Alan Vaughn, he was an amazing person. And he was my teacher. He was my dear friend. And I know he had a big impact on a lot of people here. In a minute, I'll explain why I'm here. But Alan passed away on Passover Sunday. I think that was kind of his parting joke to some of us that would appreciate that. He made probably more contributions to the field of parapsychology than anyone else I can think of, because he came at it from both sides. He was an intuitive and a science researcher. And his unique position produced 30 years worth of invaluable research into the workings of psychic phenomenon. Alan shared this wisdom with the world in 7 books and countless articles. And for anybody who's interested, we have some lists outside on our table out there of all of his published works, or at least the best we could do. In a bit, I am going to share a little sampling of Alan's work. Alan wrote this for last year's conference, and that was just about the time he became ill. And he asked me if I would come and present for him last year. And I was in an emotional state, not doing so well, so I'm doing it this year to honor him. As a scientist, Alan was well known and respected for his critical thinking, thorough investigation, and boundless curiosity. He was a pioneer. I don't think there was anything that he would not explore. As an intuitive, Alan was even more impressive. In fact, he holds the record for the most successful predictor in the world. Some of his predictions are legendary. Just to name a few, in May of 1968, Alan wrote a letter to Stanley Krippner, the director of Maimonides Dream Laboratory in Brooklyn, stating that Robert Kennedy would be shot within weeks. Kennedy was assassinated on June 5th, 1968. Alan also predicted in writing and submitted to the Central Premonitions Registry the Watergate scandal in the second half of the Nixon administration, an attack on the Pope in 1970, a delay of the Columbia launch date from May 17th to exactly April 12th, 1981, and the Challenger disaster. Alan's prediction regarding the Challenger is in his 1982 book, The Edge of Tomorrow, in which he wrote, a shuttle launch will have severe malfunctions that could threaten the space program. 4 years later, the tragic explosion of the Challenger on January 28, 1986, was initially termed a major malfunction by NASA. It was nearly 3 years before NASA launched another manned flight. In 1997, Alan predicted that the Mars probe, scheduled to land 6 months from then, on July 4th, would stop transmitting as it got closer to Mars. His prediction was aired in February on the television show Strange Universe. It was in July that serious communication problems with the probe began. So I thought today it'd be kind of fun to try a little experiment ourselves and do a little future remote viewing. So we're going to just have fun with this, and we're going to do something which is, it's been called the chair. And the way it works is that I have randomly selected a chair in the audience. And in a minute I'll point out which chair that is. And everyone in the room can kind of focus on that chair. And what I want you to do is try to imagine who's going to come in and sit in that chair a little bit later. Towards the end, we'll have someone sit in that chair and see how you did. So you don't want to be wandering around in the hall in about 25 minutes to get hauled in here. So I know you guys have been put through several remote viewing experiments, I think, over the last day or so. If you haven't, what you want to do is the fourth row here, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's an empty chair there. if everyone can see, right here, in front of the woman in the blue shirt. If you can kind of look at that chair. I would have the person stand up, but there's no one there, so you want to kind of focus on that chair and concentrate. I'm going to give you a few minutes. I'll be quiet in a minute. And just kind of conjure up, who's going to sit in that chair, male or female, what color hair, approximate age. Just use your imagination. You don't have to stress. Just, if you have no idea, take the wild, wild guess, and we'll just have fun with it. So I'm going to be quiet, let you concentrate. I'm going to try this myself, and hopefully I'll do better than I did at the spoon bending thing. And we'll see. So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes. You might want to use your notepads and write down what you pick up. So if you do something great, you can show everybody. It'll be on tape. Just kind of write down your impressions. It's probably easiest to start with a male or female and work from there. Oh, and there's no use trying to read my mind for any intuitives out there because I don't have a clue who's going to end up in that chair. Who needs a little more time? Everybody got it? Okay. Now what I'm going to share is this paper was written by Alan. Like I said, he planned on presenting it last year. So I will try to do justice. If I demolish somebody's name, forgive me. Do the best I can. Many people think that psychic ability should work like electricity. You just flick on a mental switch and the psychic light comes on. But there are restricting psychological factors, some quite subtle, that determine precognitive remote viewing success. Because I don't have slides up here for you, I'm going to number these main points for whoever's taking notes, and I'll try to go slow so you can get it. And I'll repeat if you need me to. Number 1, logical, left brain knowledge of current situations hinders accurate precognition of their outcome. I'll say that again. Logical, left brain knowledge of current situations hinders accurate precognition of their outcome. In simple terms, the less you know about a situation, the easier it is to make accurate predictions regarding it. In Douglas Dean's experiments with psychic Carol Laros, she was able to predict the outcome of yes-no situations in the lives of students with 80% accuracy. The students were only 60% accurate in predicting the outcome of these events in their own lives. As I work as an intuitive, I find this to be very, very true. The less I know about a person, the easier it is to tune into future events, and the more I know someone, the more difficult it becomes. A 1979 survey of predictions made over 50 years by experts in areas such as financial markets, economics, politics, psychology, science, and medicine showed that logical expertise gave no significant advantage. That trend continues. Financial World's study of stock market predictions made by the 20 top financial analysts of 1980 showed that they bombed out, only 2/3 of their stock picks. A study by Wall Street Journal of the top analysts' stock predictions for 6 months showed that a more successful outcome was given by throwing darts. A TV contest between a chimp who chose stocks at random and an expert stockbroker saw the chimp winning by a mile. The stockbroker vowed to eat more bananas. I didn't write that. A comparison of predictive skill about economics was made by researcher David Loy with 3 groups of college students: grad students in social science at UC Berkeley, grad students attending a futures forecasting seminar at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, and students at UCLA who are studying psychic phenomena. The UCLA students of psychic phenomena outperform the other groups. Our culture overtrains people to think logically. With the result, the left brain logical thinking overpowers the weaker signal coming from the intuitive right brain. So paradoxically, the less you know about a situation, the better you may be able to predict its outcome. Number 2, a win-win situation promotes psychic success. Motives and attitudes of all people involved in psychic experiments can affect the outcome. These successful real-life experiments should benefit both of the participants and the wider public. As a counterexample, gambling merely moves money from one pocket to another at the expense of others, thus a win-lose situation. Being here in Vegas, I guess some of us intuitives can relate to this because it just doesn't seem to work. An example of a win-win versus a win-lose situation is shown by an experiment with the celebrated psychic Gerard Croiset in the 1950s. A casino owner approached Croiset about a theoretical test of precognition at a racetrack in France. The casino owner promised he would not bet. At the track, Encalar observed as Croiset took a racing form and checked off its predictions for winners of 7 races. All 7 horses came in against astronomical odds. The casino owner begged Croiset to stay another day to repeat the experiment and vowed he would not bet. The next day, Croiset again marked his 7 choices for winners. The first was wrong, as was the second. When his choice for the 3rd race also lost, Croiset said to the owner, "You bet, didn't you?" The casino owner confessed that he had. "Yes, I just couldn't resist." Croiset's exceptional precognitive ability would not work in a win-lose situation. I have to testify to that. Number 3, beliefs, both conscious and subconscious, can determine psychic success or failure. Beliefs, especially strong convictions based on experience that an experiment will work, tend to be fulfilled. However, when there is conflicting subconscious belief, the subconscious will win out. A famous example of this subconscious conflict is provided by the spiritual healer and psychic Edgar Cayce, who tried to save his organization from bankruptcy during the Depression by psychically locating oil. The venture was completely unsuccessful. Cayce's strong inner conviction that his gifts should be used only for spiritual purposes was stronger than his conscious goal to find the desperately needed money. People who are oriented toward making money in business can be successful in using their own intuitive abilities to foresee money-making opportunities. In their book, Executive ESP, Douglas Dean and John Milowski showed that 80% of a group of company presidents who doubled their profits in 5 years scored above chance on precognition tests. The presidents whose companies lost money all scored below average. A good example of business intuition, the super success of McDonald's. The McDonald's chain was not foreseen by accountants who advised Ray Kroc against the purchase. But Ray's funny bone told him to go against their advice. Kroc's intuition manifested as throwing things out of the window, cursing colorfully, and calling his lawyer to say give them anything they want. The rest is history. Number 5, people who are oriented toward the future are significantly better at predicting it. A recent study by Alan Vaughn shows that people who score as future-oriented on this 4-item attitude test toward the future questionnaire outscore others significantly with odds of 200 to 1 in a precognition success test modeled after Dean Milowski's test 65% of the future group scored above chance. In 7 out of 7 comparisons, the future group has outscored others with odds of 100 to 1. I took part in that study that Alan Vaughan did, and there were 4 questions on our attitude toward the future, whether we looked forward to the future, feared the future, kind of our attitudes about the future. And people who were optimistic and looked forward to the future and saw great possibilities in the future were the ones that scored highest on the test, were also the ones who did well in the precognition tests. Closed mind skepticism can either deflect psychic functionings or block it altogether. An example of a skeptical examiner causing a displacement with a talented subject was Robert Van D. Castle's experience with a skeptical dream researcher who was trying to replicate the Maimonides dream telepathy studies. Van D. Castle, now a noted dream researcher, dreamed in great detail about a picture, a naked chicken wearing a vest, not seen by the telepathic sender. The experimenter's skepticism apparently induced Van D. Castle to switch to precognitive mode and dream about an interesting picture he would see in the future as part of the target pool. In this way, the examiner can confirm his belief that telepathy was impossible, and Van D. Castle can confirm his belief that he could dream psychically. Researchers and all others involved in psychic experiments should have PSI-conducive personalities, such as positive, warm, open, enthusiastic, and flexible. The opposite type of personality, cold, rigid, egotistical, inhibits psychic success. So basically, if your researcher expects you to fail, you probably will. The future is flexible, and therefore precognition cannot be as accurate as same-time psychic perception. If precognition could be shown to be nearly 100% accurate over thousands of trials, it would prove that the future is absolutely predetermined. Fortunately, there is no evidence that remotely suggests that the future can be absolutely foreseen. In a closed laboratory system that does not greatly affect anyone's life, higher accuracy in precognition can be. In an informal experiment at SRI International in Menlo Park, California, a physicist energetically bounced a coin against a wall, while another scientist who had earlier demonstrated exceptional psychic skills predicted the outcome for 33 tosses. The odds against chance were 8.6 billion to 1. The psychic scientist attributed half of his success to psychic skill and the other half to chance. The majority vote or group consensus technique can enhance precognitive success in real-life situations. In 1967, Allen elicited predictions from many psychics in England about major events in the future. The future events about which there was a consensus did in fact happen a few years earlier, such as writing books on psychic research and moving to California to work for a psychic magazine. In 1975, Allen studied the predictions of 14 psychics about President Ford. By a considerable consensus, 13 to 1, the psychics voted that President Ford would not be reelected in 1976. At Allen's suggestion, the San Francisco Chronicle polled 6 psychics for yes-no answers to 5 burning issues of 1977, such as, will Patty Hearst be in jail? Who will win the Super Bowl? Oakland or Minnesota? The consensus was 100% correct for all 5 questions, though the best that any individual psychic did was 80%. In the 1980s, Alan Vaughan worked for a Los Angeles consultant service, Psychic Enterprises, headed by businessman Glenn Nickel. Psychic enterprises advised business clients on the basis of consensus predictions from a group of psychics. When a fast food chain asked about franchising a ribs restaurant, the psychic response from the group was that chicken would sell better. Thus, El Pollo Loco was born. Apparently, that group did not survive because businesses were too embarrassed to say that they were consulting a group of psychics, and so they collapsed. Number 10, high emotional impact and meaningfulness of future feedback favor precognitive success. In 1968, Gerard Croisset performed a similar experiment when he described in detail a person randomly chosen from an audience at a hall 2 or more days in advance. In 1968, Allen witnessed Croisset describe in detail 2 days in advance both the person chosen by chance and another person who jumped up on stage to translate. Croisset said his best results came when filming of his predictions, and the fulfillment added to the excitement. Poor results were obtained for the chair experiment when it became too routine for Croisset. I sent her out there to get someone to come sit in the chair so that we could go on with that. Hopefully they'll be in a minute. Psychics need to make contact with the specific target in real-life situations, such as handling information about the target or being given the name and location of a person or company. Contact can come through the future experience of the psychic or through the future experience of the client. I have found that to be true myself. The closer you are to the person or have something of theirs, the easier it is to clue in on their target. Precognitive remote viewing experiments work best when the subject's emotions are engaged and actually visiting or describing sight during feedback, rather than merely being shown pictures of the site. For those who've worked on any of the military targets, a lot of times after a few days of working on their targets, they will show you slides or pictures of the target, which is a thrill, but it's not nearly as exciting as actually going there and seeing what you saw in your mind. Okay, we have a victim. For all of those that participated earlier and wrote down your impressions, you can take note of who's sitting in the chair. Did you tell her what was happening? Okay. Yeah, why don't you stand up? Thank you. Does anybody have anything really thrilling to share?
I wrote down brown hair, female, white shoes, and red blouse. But
that would be you.
You got the female part right.
And the red blouse, brown hair.
Well, she's wearing yellow. Though yesterday she was wearing a red blouse. Very good.
I had a Caucasian woman, blue dress.
I had the blonde woman, and I mixed up with the green shirt with her.
Oh, maybe that's what she's going to wear tomorrow. I'm hoping for blue, because that's what I got.
I perceived that 2 people would walk in, sort of like one hesitate, and then the other one sit down, like sort of like a dupe. But I AOL'd Angela first.
Oh, did you? Okay. You know, I think that's who I was seeing, too. That's interesting. Anybody else? No. I also saw a female, but my female, and about the same color hair, but she was wearing blue, so maybe that's what you'll do tomorrow. So that was just a little bit of fun there for an experiment. It's kind of surprising, isn't it? Are you? Good. So it's kind of fun when you're just playing around and just kind of seeing what you can do, and you know, sometimes you accidentally hit it. So it's fun. They've also found that when no feedback is given to subjects, results are consistently at chance. So feedback's a really important part of learning how to remote view. That's why I had her come in here today, so you could all see how you did. And you should never be discouraged if you didn't get it quite right, because you never know. I mean, something really strange could happen, like she could get up and leave, and during the next session, your person could come in and sit in that chair. So you should never count yourself as that you made a mistake, or you just, you know, you can't do this, because a lot of times there's surprises. If, as Alan theorized, precognitive information is accessed the same way as memories of the past, with trivial events being stored in short-term memory and high emotional events entering long-term memory, we would expect that effective precognitive targets must provide sufficient emotional feedback for them to stand out over other events. That is, the farther into the future one wants to see, the more emotional or meaningful the target should be. I find it much easier myself to predict momentous life events, such as marriage or birth of a child or some very emotional, highly charged situation. The same holds true for precognitive dreams. In a precognitive dream experiment, Alan found that the most detailed dreams of the distant future were usually interesting and emotional events, including a search for the lost ships of Columbus in Jamaica in 1985, which he had dreamed about 16 years prior, and a sailing adventure to Madagascar in the Indian Ocean, which he had dreamed about 21 years prior. In my own precognitive dream experiences, I dreamed details of the events surrounding a child kidnapping several years before the abduction actually took place. Obviously an emotional, very highly charged emotional event. Trivial targets in forced choice tests show the same decline over time as does short-term memory. Traditional forced choice tests with small numbers of known potential targets, such as ESP cards, random event generators that give feedback in the form of a green light or a red light, promote guessing and produce mediocre results. Numbers and names make extremely poor psychic targets. Names and numbers are stored in the left brain and are only rarely accessible to mainly right brain psychic perception. Even the highly talented Crosset could never give the number that would be drawn by chance from an audience member, but he would describe the person and their personal characteristics. Numbers can be predicted when they are converted to pictures. Alan was successful at using this strategy for economic forecasting. A technique for converting numbers into right brain targets is called associative remote viewing. The most famous experiment using this technique was done by physicist Russell Targ and psychologist Keith Harary to forecast silver futures correctly in 9 initial attempts, which netted their investor $120,000 profit. When the investor pressed them to do the experiments more often at half of their commission, the second series were all incorrect, and the third series by another viewer displaced onto wrong targets. Targ theorized that when greed enters the picture, psychic ability is adversely affected. The technique, however, was so sophisticated, the viewer would visualize which of 4 unknown objects would be given him the next week, with each object representing whether the market would go up a little, go up a lot, go down a little, or go down a lot. The best precognitive results usually come from psychics who have established good track records. A highly successful lab study is the precognitive dream experiments done by the late Malcolm Besant, who scored 14 hits out of 16 attempts to dream about future target experiences. Sugar Land, Texas psychic Sean Harabance, who 30 years ago excelled at laboratory ESP, has now created a formidable track record of predicting financial markets. His standout prediction about the stock market crash of October 1987 was published over a year in advance. Out of 93 published predictions, 72 were rated as correct. He had a 77% success rate. People can be trained in precognitive skills with psychic reward software. Alan spent many years developing this software called Psychic Reward, and there was a version you could play on your computer. There was also a version he was working on for handheld, kind of like Game Boy thing, and I was deeply involved with him in this project, and I got kind of addicted to it because when you got to play it, it was actually a lot of fun. But it was a wheel, and it was divided into 26 sections, and each section had a letter. And so what you would try to do was guess which letter was going to come up. But what was unique about it was that if you even came close, you still got some points. And the farther away from it, the actual target, the less points you got. And it figured all the statistics and all that for you. So Alan Vaughn was developing that with Jack Hawk, who was here doing the PK party. A lot of people don't realize that practice and something like playing a computer game like that can increase your abilities. But with some of the testing we did, we showed that that is indeed the case. A pilot study by Alan Vaughn and Jack Hawk shows that the majority of psychic reward trainees improve their ability to predict electronic targets. Together, the 12 subjects achieved both significant improvements as well as overall significant scores. A new study by Vaughn and 2 trainees, myself being one of them, used 17 files of psychic reward to train a person in psychokinesis, a fast and easy way, before attempting a precognition file. The last half of data was highly significant, with odds of 100,000 to 1, and showed significant improvements over the first half of the data. The last file, which was done in precognition mode, was significant. So when I say that we did several trials of psychokinesis, that was where I would choose the letter, and I would try to get the computer to choose my letter rather than trying to guess what the computer was going to generate. So I would pick one letter and stay with it through the entire test, and I could actually get it to hit on that letter so many times above chance that the odds were 100,000 to 1. Somehow my PK skills didn't transfer over to flatware. For those of you who are interested or would like to try Psychic Reward, I think you can still download it from Alan's website, right? Yeah, I think if you go to www.alanvaughn.com, you can still download that software. If not, you can hunt down Jack Hawk somewhere around here and he is taking over Psychic Reward. It's an amazing program, and I really hope that it gets the attention it deserves, because it was really an incredible tool. I have no idea how we're doing on time.
Doing just fine. You've got about 10 more minutes.
Okay, does anybody have any questions at this point?
I'll bring the microphone up.
Is there anything I've said so far I went over too fast, or you have a question?
Could you just repeat that website, please?
Yes, www.alanvaughan, ALANVAUGHAN.com.
Okay, got another one over here.
It seemed to me I heard you say something like the closer you are to, or if you have something that belonged to a person in remote viewing, you could be more accurate.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that, does that have anything to do with the PK? Or is that what PK is?
No. What PK is, psychokinesis, is affecting matter with your mind, which if you guys, anybody went to the PK party last night and there were bending forks and stuff, that's what psychokinesis is being, there's people who supposedly can move things across the room, or that's psychokinesis.
Okay, we've got a real tough question for you, I'm sure.
No, actually, it should be very easy. I was trying to find a copy of Patterns of Prophecy and wasn't able to find one available in the bookstores. Do you have any idea how I could get a hold of one?
You can contact Carolyn Koch, she's up here, raising her hand. She's kind of taking care of Alan's estate and some of the business affairs, and she should be able to help you with that. Is it still in print? We have a few copies, because I guess it's not in print anymore. And like I said, for those who are interested, we left out on the table a list of some of his writings, and he wrote so many articles, I don't think we could possibly get all of them, but we tried.
Oh, you just asked it. We got one back here.
You mentioned a Sean, somebody from Texas. Last name, please.
Let me go back. Yeah, that was somebody from Sugar Beet, Texas or something, huh?
Sugarland?
Sugarland.
Suburb of Houston.
Okay, I will give that to you as soon as I find that.
I'm from Texas, but I'm not Sean.
It came right after your reference to Malcolm Doucette.
Okay. What was the subject matter, do you recall?
Predicting the financial markets, 72 out of 90. The average is 77%.
Okay, well, I'll find it in a minute and I will get that to you.
Okay, anybody else?
I know I haven't done justice to some of these last names either, so.
Okay, you have a question in your eyes there, or is it just confused by life in general? Got it. Okay. Anybody else? Oh, yes.
Where would you find room 320 to find Jack and his machines and ask him about the game?
Jack Hawk?
Yeah, 320, I don't know where to find it. I wondered if anybody knew.
Probably third floor.
Third floor.
Yes.
Oh, is that where he's staying?
I don't know. It's on the second floor.
Yeah, that's probably his hotel room. Is
Okay,
what
well,
I
I'm not
understand.
going
That's
to
where
tell
he's
you to
doing
go.
it.
I'm not going to tell you to go knock on his door because he'll be after me.
It's a trick question.
But I'm sure you'll see Jack walking around down here, and then you can. But he's definitely taking over, I believe, taking over and going to help develop the handheld version of Psychic Reward.
Okay. Anybody else? Nothing?
Okay,
pretty-
well, I
pretty
breezed
quiet.
through this so fast.
Oh, you did a great job. Next time. That's very good. Thank you.
Thank you.